Today, if you ask me who I am, I'll tell you. I'm a happy person. But if you had met me at 13 and asked me the same question, I would have told you I'm a sick person. I am about to share with you two stories that both happened 7 years ago, growing up in Switzerland, as I was only 13. For the first story, let me take you back to the 26th of March, 2016. Now, this day might not signify much to you, but to me, it was everything. It was my 13th birthday. Ironically, as a present for my 13th birthday, I got diagnosed with a chronic immune deficiency illness. Now, it is safe to say that this diagnosis changed my life forever. Before that, I was simply a young teen wanting to be normal, like everyone else, just fitting in. I went from my biggest concern, being makeup, friends, and having fun, to simply being a sick person. And although I never really accepted to be labeled as such, the illness got the better of me. Not only did it prevent me from doing teen things, but it attacked every part of my life, the visible and invisible parts. Now, behind me is a drawing from July 2017, and as you observe it, let me comment on the red marks. These red marks represent a sensation, the sensation that my body was on fire. At a time where words seemed too light to describe the physical state I was in, I used art. And the yellow mark that you can see on the corner right is the remaining hope I had. I remember everything happened so quickly. In only a few weeks, my skin condition got so bad that I couldn't play basketball with my teammates. I couldn't shower normally, and I couldn't even sit on a chair. In 10th grade, one of my biggest fears was when the teacher would move students around the class. And it wasn't because I was shy, nor because I didn't like my classmates, rather the opposite. One of my good friends had openly told the teacher that he didn't want to sit next to me due to the fact that he couldn't stand looking at me. So at the time, I wondered, do I stink? But with time, I realized this illness was preventing me from enjoying the simple things in life, those that we take for granted. Over the course of a few weeks, the illness had spread over my whole body. It had altered my daily habits in such a way that instead of wishing for makeup, I was wishing to have my old life back. From that 26th of March onward, the feeling and the symptoms got more and more intense, day after day. I felt like I couldn't rest. As the pain would increase, my resilience would be taken to its breaking point, where some evenings, lying in bed, I would think to myself, if only I knew what to do, or at least just have someone to teach me what to do. As the situation grew out of control, I felt like I was lacking the tools to deal with it. Now, the next few notes and drawings might just seem like scribbles of a 13-year-old to you. And I mean, they are. I was no Van Gogh, but this was still my way to express the intensity of the pain and everything that went with it. And until today, until you guys, had allowed no one to see these notes. And before you ask, let me tell you why. For some time, I felt both hopeless and helpless. As my struggles were visible to the world, this contradicting truth emerged. I felt myself persistently ill-prepared for the situation I was in and lacking the necessary guidance. So now, to give you a more personal perspective, let's turn the little pages of my diary. Aucun vent n'est favorable au voilier qui ne sait pas dans quel port aller. For the boat, wind is not so important, as long as the captain doesn't know where to go. For me, I was lost. No one could feel my pain, so I really didn't know where to look for answers. What I wanted to communicate was that even support from one's environment won't help if we don't know where and how to look for answers. This is crucial to understand. The support that I received did not and could not have replaced my lack of directions. Today, if you ask me how I am, I'll tell you, I'm doing fine. And ironically enough, if you had met me at 13 and asked me exactly the same question, I would have told you, I'm doing fine. Yet, despite my best efforts, there was no way for me to fake it. I was doing far from fine, and people could literally see it. No matter how much I pretended to be okay, my body was a truth teller, revealing the battles beneath the surface. And in my case, my suffering was visible and therefore unmistakable. But today, the person sitting on your right might be suffering in silence with words that mask their pain and smiles that hide their battles. So let me ask you a question. Imagine yourself in your workplace. You're sat at your desk, and every morning you ask your colleagues, how are you doing? Most of them will answer, I'm doing fine. But the true question is, how are they actually going? Do you know how they're actually going? And my question today to you is, are we going to wait until the burnout to ask those true questions? And so I come to my second story. Around the 12th of May 2017, I became close to a girl who ended up becoming a friend. Meet Lisa. Lisa is full of joy and positivity. Lisa is smart, mature, and above all, Lisa is the cool one. But let me tell you, I was the first one to be fooled. By believing her honesty, none had ever dug deeper until that one afternoon break. See, Lisa, she didn't have any betraying signs. No matter how many people had asked her how she was doing, none had seen the discrepancy between her answer and her truth. She had found herself in a situation of despair, incapable of making choices for herself. But one day, she finally made her choice. While hidden from the crowd of school kids, she came up to me and said, Lou, in 12 days, if things aren't going better, I won't be here anymore. Like many, Lisa didn't find the opportunity to express herself. So she preferred to stay silent. Before me, 2 other kids had been informed of her decision. I remember one telling me, it's none of my own business. And in all honesty, she was right. But as I made it my own business, I remember the other one telling me, Lou, don't tell the teachers. Don't betray your friend's trust. Well, it was evident that Lisa needed help and that I wouldn't let her down. The 13-year-old Lou still didn't know how to be there for her friend. She still didn't know how to handle the situation. And in all honesty, none of us had answers to this dilemma. Trust is important, but so is life, right? Lisa had answers on how to commit suicide, but no answers on how to live her 13-year-old life. How can we expect that teens know how to go on about death, but not about life? As you may imagine, I was a bit overwhelmed. So the question remained, should I tell the teachers? By now, some of you may have noticed that Lisa and I were at the crossroad where we were both lacking the directions we needed. My disease being obvious allowed my surrounding to give me a support boost, while Lisa was lacking it. However, the key aspect is that both of us were facing challenging times, no matter our environment. Whether it was visible or invisible, we both felt pretty unhappy. And in fact, we were both ready for therapy. But why aren't we talking prevention? We've all heard of therapy, but I want to believe we can think a step ahead. Let me illustrate the situation with a seemingly simple quote. The ambulance at the bottom of the hill after the fall off the cliff is a much worse strategy than preventing the fall in the first place. So perhaps, reflecting on this, if we weren't lacking the necessary foundation that strengthened well-being beforehand, Lisa and I may have had the courage to ask for help earlier. Consider for a moment, what if we could rethink the role of education? As I ask you to consider the circumstances of Lisa and myself, you might wonder about its broader significance to our world. So I suggest we look at data together. As it turns out, our story isn't an exception. The suffering we felt is far from being unique. Global figures for mental disorders amongst teenagers aged 10 to 19, as reported by UNICEF, are quite striking. In 2019, and that is even before the pandemic, about 13% of adolescents were suffering from mental disorder. That means more than 156 million individuals. Let me repeat that. More than 156 million teenagers. Can you imagine that around the world, in every classroom of 25 students, more than 3 are struggling with mental disorder? This rise of mental ill health, depression, and anxiety is a burden on our society. It's global. It's not just about Lisa and me. And today, looking back, I confess, I needed this guidance. I needed a form of teaching that I did not have. I, Lisa, and the 156 other million individuals could have needed prevention. It is now time we incorporate the missing skills in our education system, fostering learning beyond the classroom. Research reveals that character traits and well-being can be learned and even strengthened over time. Schools, as the central source of education, play a pivotal role in transmitting the values of our society to young people. And for that, these institutions have the power and the responsibility to foster a welfare culture. Now, don't get me wrong here. I am more than grateful about the education that I received, and I do not have the intention to sacrifice it. Rather, I want to tell you about positive education, which aims at enhancing both our traditional academic outcomes as well as the well-being of our students. Doing so, the emphasis is set on the diversification of learnings. Positive education redefines the role of schools. In such programs, students do not only cultivate their intellectual capacities, but also develop a broad range of competencies which together contributes to their well-being. Nations across the globe have recognized the need for an education that transcends mere academics. As such, they have worked on developing a program that aims at teaching those crucial skills. The ones I had to learn through experience. And while there's no one-size-fits-all to teaching those crucial skills, these nations have still taken the first step into this journey. Curriculums included both an active intervention in the form of a standalone course, as well as a passive intervention with what I like to call a life lens. In other words, they made sure to connect courses to the situation that students would be facing in their lives. This could go from identifying and developing their resilience, social emotional capacities, and self-efficacy up to fostering a more rooted connection to nature. Now, at this point, you're probably asking, okay, Lou, we got it. But how do we perceive the results of such intervention? As we can see it on the graphs, for all 3 countries, we have both the standardized test scores as well as the well-being score for both the control group in orange and the experimental group in blue. And you'll see it for yourself, the results are quite remarkable. Schools with positive education outperformed control group. Not only did the curriculum increase students' well-being, but it also significantly increased their academic achievement, even 1 year after the intervention ended. And these improvements correspond to a gain of a full academic year. There is now growing evidence base on positive education and its favorable impact. It's not just about teaching. It's about transforming our idea of learning to boost both well-being and performance. I like to think of it as a toolkit, a set of tools and skills that will equip kids to learn how to deal with the hardships and questions of life. Taken together, this data demonstrates that well-being and academic achievement are not antagonists. Quite the opposite. They work in synergy. And this synergy can be taken to our advantage. By teaching those skills in a preventive form, some teens, like Lisa and myself, might even be spared therapy. This new educational paradigm could create a generation of happier, more knowledgeable, and skillful youth, enabling teens to be better equipped for a happier and healthier world. The past few years have taught me that not only sick people are struggling, and that whether battles are visible or invisible, we should enact before it's too late. That one afternoon break in 2017, I'm glad Lisa had the courage to express her pain, despite the fact that these subjects were not included in our curriculum. They were sort of like a taboo. But with her words, she broke the silence. Today, Lisa is still one of us. And while I'm standing here telling you she made it, I still don't know what helped her. But what I know is that we were only a few days away from it being too late. So, for the teachers who educate turbulent kids, for parents who think it's only a teen crisis, and most importantly, for those fighting their battles, here's my message to you. Becoming happier is teachable, and it could support our generation in a way that Lisa and I needed. Together, we could prevent the fall off the cliff. Thank you.